Introducing Anil Vijayan, Vice President at Everest Group, who is leader in the Business Process Services and the Service Optimization Technologies teams. Anil's responsibilities include leading Everest Group's HR outsourcing, contingent workforce management, managed service provider, and service optimization technology offerings. Please welcome Anil Vijayan, who will be speaking on the topic Intelligent Automation in HR, Moving the Needle Post-Pandemic.
Good afternoon and good evening based on where you are. Pleasure to be speaking with all of you today. So I focus on two areas as an analyst. One is HR and talent, and this includes payroll, benefits, multi-process HR, HR technology, and so on. The other one is next generation technologies, and under this bucket, I cover robotic process automation or RPA, artificial intelligence or AI-based solutions, process mining, digital adoption platforms, etc. And today I will be talking about the intersection of these two worlds, namely intelligent automation in HR, what it looks like, how it has evolved, and how you should be thinking about it going forward now that we find ourselves in the midst of a global pandemic in 2020. Now, I recognize that many of you would be at different points in your intelligent automation journey, and hence I'm going to start with some of the basics. Intelligent automation largely refers to the combining of robotic process automation or RPA and artificial intelligence or AI-based solutions to deliver more end-to-end process automation and consequently greater business value. Now again, it is critical to understand that these two components of intelligent automation, they serve very different purposes. So while RPA is largely appropriate for transactional rules-based processes and their automation, AI-based solutions can navigate judgment-oriented processes and tasks as well. RPA solutions typically work with structured data, the kind that you find in Excel sheets, databases, and so on, whereas AI-based solutions can process unstructured data as well, such as images, videos, free-form text, etc. So typically AI-based solutions would be technologies like intelligent virtual agents or intelligent chatbots that most of you would be familiar with, intelligent document processing, and so on. Now, the broader ecosystem of intelligent automation solutions consists of not just RPA and AI-based solutions, but also other enablers or ancillary technologies. These ancillary technologies support and enable the delivery of core technologies of RPA and AI. So you have, the likes of analytics, and this includes not just the operational analytics, but also analytics for aspects such as discovery of automatable processes. And again, falling under that category would be tools like process mining and task mining. Then you also have BPM and various kinds of orchestrator solutions coming into play. Again, this is a critical area and increasingly becoming more important as we have more and more robots and human beings working together. For managing handoffs between robots and humans and various other technology solutions, you need a layer of orchestration on top. And whether that is a heavier solution like BPM or a lighter orchestration, that is something which is still playing out in the market today. As far as the core solutions go, I mentioned that we have two primary components, RPA and AI-based solutions. RPA itself can be split into two subcategories, attended RPA or robotic desktop automation, and unattended RPA. Unattended RPA is of course more common today, and it is generally server-based and triggered automatically, often as per a schedule or based on a trigger event. Attended RPA, also called robotic desktop automation, is something which is triggered generally by a human agent, and it runs on desktops as the name indicates. On the AI solution side, we have called out 3 categories. And the reason for that is a couple of these categories have actually taken product form and have broad-based applicability across a variety of use cases. So the most common one is the intelligent document processing solution, or IDP. This refers to any tool which can be used to extract specific data elements from documents, be they scanned images of documents or emails or invoices, mortgages, etc. The extraction is achieved using machine learning based techniques. Again, this is a reasonably mature technology in terms of the AI component, and it has taken a productized form, meaning you can potentially buy it off the shelf and apply it to a variety of documents once appropriately trained. Similarly, you have intelligent virtual agents. These are your intelligent chatbots, so to speak, which automate conversations with various kinds of stakeholders, including customers, employees, and partners. The maturity for IVA is lower as compared to intelligent document processing. However, these solutions are still somewhat well-defined and thus merit their own category. The last category of bespoke solutions is something of a catch-all bucket that encompasses all other AI solutions that are being used for the purpose of automation. So these are typically specific to certain situations or certain organizations or even particular data sets. By definition, they are bespoke in nature and therefore don't necessarily have that broad-based applicability today. One example could be, say, object recognition and counting for, let's say, inventory management at a hospital. Again, very specific situation and generally not broad-based or productized. So it goes without saying that this ecosystem that you see here is very dynamic, and we may see changes in the near future. For example, we may see certain solutions which are bespoke now come out from here and take more of a productized shape. But regardless, as you go along in your automation journey, it is really important to understand what this ecosystem looks like and what these various components are. So what does adoption maturity look like today? Now, we started out with attended RPA or robotic desktop automation, and we slowly moved to unattended RPA. Now we are heading towards intelligent automation. Today, the level of maturity is much higher on the RPA front compared to AI-based solutions. RPA has become almost ubiquitous. It's there everywhere. Almost every large enterprise tends to use it, and increasingly mid and small-sized enterprises are also using it. AI-based solutions, on the other hand, are still very much on the upward trajectory right now. Having said that, the future direction is clearly in the combination of these two, that is intelligent automation, and we are moving towards that future fairly rapidly. And the story is no different on the HR side of things. In fact, HR has been witnessing an increasing adoption of automation, as is evidenced by the inclusion of automation tools and technologies in various kinds of HR deals. RPA is included in almost 50% of active broad-based HR outsourcing deals today, whereas AI-based solutions or cognitive solutions are there in around a quarter of the deals today. And we can also recognize that this is clearly part of a trend, since inclusion of automation tools and technologies in HR outsourcing deals has been steadily rising over the years. Now, let's take a look at where automation really comes to play in the HR world, right? So processes such as employee data management, employee contact center, recruitment, payroll, benefits, and in particular the transactional aspects of some of these processes and sub-processes, these are key targets for automation. For instance, as part of EDM, the transfer of data between different disparate systems in a bidirectional fashion can be facilitated through RPA without the need for API-based integration and maintenance of those integrations, right? On the employee contact center front, you have various kinds of intelligent virtual agents which can answer a variety of questions from complex queries around payroll discrepancies to relatively simple queries like, hey, what's my leave balance? Of course, through automated answering of some of these queries, the employee contact center volumes can be reduced, right? That is the queries which have to be answered by human agents, and therefore there is a savings in terms of both time and cost. In payroll, apart from automated answering of queries, you also have other use cases of automation. For instance, in both pre and post-run validation, RPA can play a major role in ensuring data validity and integrity as well. Use cases on the recruitment side are numerous as well. You have things like CV parsing, matching, and generation of fitment scores, where IDP can be used extensively along with other machine learning based models. You have generation of offer letters using RPA, and of course use of IVAs or intelligent virtual agents for automating some of the conversations with candidates and scheduling interviews as well. So essentially automation finds a play in multiple different areas. Now, processes which are more judgment intensive and those in strategic areas tend to be less automatable today and rely more on human input and judgment. For instance, employee relations management, HR strategy, and so on. These will likely not be automated to a great degree in the near future. But everywhere else, there is significant potential to automate HR processes. All right. So now that we know how automation has been evolving and how it has been moving along in HR, let's address the elephant in the room, which is essentially the situation we find ourselves in 2020. That is in the midst of an unprecedented global pandemic. Given the current scenario, on the business side of things, enterprises are facing challenges on multiple fronts. While there are some early signs of recovery, I believe we still have an impending recession, or at the very least a period of great caution and uncertainty ahead of us due to the impact of the pandemic on the commercial activities, due to the possibility of second and third wave, and so on. Right? So essentially, this is forcing enterprises to think about cost reduction measures, and in particular to think about how to cut discretionary spending and be conservative in cash flow management. There has, of course, been the whole challenge of work from home. Most enterprises started to switch to a work from home environment somewhere around that March to April timeframe earlier this year. Initially, the struggle was simply to keep the lights on, keep operations running, and make the switch from an office environment to a home environment. In fact, I recall that early on, many unprepared organizations are actually going around installing desktops at the homes of employees. But now, we've kind of crossed that hurdle. But other issues around employee engagement, management, and motivation are coming into play. So again, initially there was talk of improved productivity, but now we are seeing that actually come down. in certain areas. So we need to figure out ways to continuously engage and motivate employees, since it seems like this model of work from home will continue for a while. Of course, a few verticals have been hit more badly than others. Enterprises in travel and hospitality, the cruise liner industry, non-essential retail, to mention a few verticals, they've been more severely impacted, and some of them are staring bankruptcy in the eye if they have not already gone bankrupt. Some verticals, on the other hand, experienced a surge in volume. Certainly, some healthcare providers had to deal with this, and so did certain pharma and life sciences companies. So, what does all of this mean for automation? Now, one thing which became evident as we went through the pandemic is that organizations which were further ahead on their digital journeys were not only operating on a much lower cost base, but they were also much more resilient to the changes brought about by the pandemic. Organizations which had moved further ahead in their transformation journeys, they were able to do a much better job keeping the lights on. They were able to make the switch to work from home in a more smoother fashion. They were able to deal better with the fluctuations in volumes, and consequently, they were able to serve their customers better during the pandemic. Of course, a key component of the digital journey happens to be intelligent automation, and hence it is natural to expect that going forward, organizations would want to accelerate their automation journeys so that they remain competitive in the new environment as well. So this is also clearly showing in some of the research that we conducted recently. One of our recent surveys of enterprise leaders shows that 80% of enterprises see automation as a key lever to achieving their goals. And a vast majority of organizations are planning to increase their leverage of automation, whether it be through their service providers or tech vendors or other partners, or through their own in-house shared service or GBS organizations. Now, of course, some of these numbers have dramatically gone up from where they were during the pre-pandemic days. But what we also notice is, of course, the intent and the sense of urgency behind some of these numbers, right? That has also increased meaningfully. The drivers for automation are numerous, but the recent surge in interest is primarily being driven by two things. One is the need to cut costs. And this goes back to the fact that we find ourselves in a recessionary environment, and hence organizations need to squeeze cost out of operations. The second key driver is resilience. Bots can operate from anywhere. They don't need breaks, and in general, they're much more resilient to environmental changes. There are other factors as well, including improved employee experience, better governance and compliance, enhancing customer experience, laying groundwork for broader digital transformation, etc. But overarchingly, the cost saving and resilience needs are the major burning ones today in this environment. Okay, so how should all of this feed into your automation strategies going forward? How should you be thinking about moving the needle as we hopefully come out of this situation? Now, this is not explicitly mentioned here, but it goes without saying that you should have an aggressive automation strategy in order to remain competitive. Now, even if you had a plan pre-pandemic, now may be the time to relook at how you can accelerate some of the elements or components of that plan, and also reprioritize some of the processes that you want to automate based on key needs today. And as I mentioned earlier, key needs today definitely revolve around the need to keep lights on, to keep operations running, and be resilient in the current environment. And of course, the need to simply take out costs from operations. So, maybe it's time to rethink or park some of the more experimental automation projects, which have a long runway. So, if you are still examining some of those projects which have a long runway to results, you may need to rethink some of those and look for ones where you can get quick results and return on investment. And related to quick ROI, in order to achieve that, you can also seek solutions that are packaged for particular areas or verticals. So for instance, look out for solutions that may be, come pre-built for payroll end to end, right? Or procure to pay end to end. Solutions that can start to show some benefits right out of the box. These are the ones that you need to be looking for. On the AI front, this may mean solutions that are pre-trained and have pre-built integrators with key systems of record. On the RPA front, again, this may mean availability of templates, accelerators, and other reusable components. Again, I think it's very clear that the time for experimentation and dilly-dallying with maybe one robot license or thinking about a 5-year transformation journey, that has come to an end. In a recessionary environment, what works is solutions that take out costs, manage volumes, and do so fairly quickly. So plan your automation program to feed into those kind of guiding principles, being cognizant of the environment that you are in currently. Last but not the least, if you're seeking the help of a provider or a technology vendor for some of these solutions, seek commercial arrangements that dull the cost blow. So anything with a huge initial outlay may be a difficult internal sell in these times where cash flow takes precedence. Instead, check if your partner on the automation journey is maybe willing to spread that initial outlay over the lifetime of the engagement, or better even, do away with it completely through maybe an outcome-based or a gain-sharing construct, or at the very least, see if some of your partners can offer, potentially flexibility in payment terms, right? Particularly if you have difficult positions with respect to cash flow. So finally, as we come to term with this pandemic and moving forward, automation will no doubt be a central theme and central agenda for organizations, and we are already seeing it across the CXO suite. So as business leaders and HR leaders, if you're not thinking about automation in your functions seriously today, I would certainly urge you to start on that path sooner rather than later. And with that, I come to the end of my presentation. And now I will take up some of the questions which have come in. So one question I can see here is, do you expect, due to COVID impact, organizations will be more open to adopting technology faster? So I think this is partially answered as part of the presentation, but just to reiterate, what I think is going to happen and what we are actually seeing happening is that we are going to we're going to very specific outcomes, right? So now again, time for experimentation and time for long projects or projects with long implementation cycles and time to ROI. That the time for that is gone, right? So folks or enterprises are signing up for solutions which can start to deliver benefits fairly rapidly, rather than think of a whole implementation plan which can last over several years, right? So two key focus areas even on the technology front is the time to ROI the actual business benefits, right? As long as it ticks both boxes, organizations will definitely be open to those. Another question which I can see is, can you share use cases for AI in recruitment and payroll? Sure. So there are multiple use cases. Like I said, some are more common than the others. So for instance, in recruitment, I touched upon a few. So CV parsing and data extraction from CVs, from unstructured CVs, that is one use case which is definitely utilized by several organizations. You have the intelligent virtual agents which communicates with candidates and schedule interviews and so on. You also have generation of fitment scores which can be achieved through machine learning models, and in some cases they can actually even be used to eliminate bias as long as you're training it appropriately. Right? On the payroll side, again, AI-based use cases, the key one which comes to mind is anomaly detection. So after a payroll run, detecting anomalies, detecting potential cases of issues and so on, those are also being done today using machine learning based models which are trained on past historical data. Okay. I can see another question. So, what is the optimal approach for discovering processes or tasks to be automated? Now, there's no one optimal approach. There are multiple ways in which organizations are going about it. From a guiding philosophy perspective, there are organizations who are going top down, and that is typically achieved through a workshop, a brainstorming session, and increasingly it's also being achieved through some of the tools like process mining and task mining. And then the other philosophy is the grassroots approach, or the bottom up, right, where ideas for automation are crowdsourced, and then they are filtered through, and few which are, or whichever ones are high potential, they are then implemented, right? So both of these approaches working in concert is the best, of course. Typically, a lot of automation projects start as top down, but then there is only so much you can achieve with top down. Then to sustain that pipeline and continue to identify automation opportunities, you need the bottom up to come up as well. Okay. All right. I see. I can possibly take one more question. So automation. Okay, I can see. What is the percentage of automation that can be achieved in HR? And honestly, this really varies by the underlying conditions, right? So there are various factors which come into play. So one is are your processes standardized or not, or are they even documented or not? Two, what is the nature of your current tech landscape? There's a level of fragmentation with automation when it becomes optimal. Anything above that or below that, it's suboptimal. And then you also have nature of organization, its complexity, whether processes are centralized or not, and so on. But overall, reasonably mature organizations have been able to automate 20 to 40% of the effort from processes that they sought to automate. All right, so with that, I come to the end of my time.